Hi class, right now we're going to continue our lesson on animal rights versus animal welfare. And so while I'm reading this article to you, I just want you to remember the difference between animal rights and animal welfare. And so this article has to do with Nintendo and a game that they've put out, but just basically remember that animal rights wants to end all human exploitation of animals, and so this basically includes raising livestock for slaughter and human consumption. This includes getting rid of all zoos. It includes eating meat. They don't like hunting. They are against medical and veterinarian research, rodeos, horse shows, any kind of animal performances on TV. Even as far as owning a pet, they want to regulate how that pet is raised. They don't want it to be on a leash, or they don't want it to be on a cable in the backyard or anything like that. And so that is animal rights, okay? And then animal welfare, they're basically against the cruelty practices to animals. So their kind of motto is to prevent suffering and cruelty to animals, and basically they want to provide good homes for pets in need. So they want to make sure that they're okay with livestock being raised for human consumption. However, they just want to stress the fact that these animals need to be raised healthy. They need to be fed and maintained in clean conditions. They also want to find homes for unwanted pets as well as misused pets. And they don't want a surplus of pets. So they are for spading and neutering your pets, especially those dogs and cats. And so they also are trying to, animal welfare wants to find more humane ways of testing on animals and raising animals. So they're not necessarily against it. They just want to find more humane ways of going through their practices, okay? So just keep that in mind while I'm reading this to you. That this is from the Los Angeles Times from last November, and it's called PETA Takes on Nintendo's Mario and His Tanuki Suit. Okay, this is what the article looks like. I printed it off the internet, and I'll go ahead and read through, and then we'll just kind of discuss it. Does Nintendo's new Super Mario 3D Land game promote the wearing of fur? That's what the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals is asserting in the organization's latest attempt to grab attention for its pro-animal, anti-fur agenda. So that's PETA. PETA explains its gripe with Mario, a graphic character from the video game, on its website. When on a mission to rescue the princess, Mario has been known to use whatever means necessary to defeat its enemy, even wearing the skin of a raccoon dog to give him special powers. Tanuki may be just a suit in the game, but in real life, Tanuki are raccoon dogs who are skinned alive for their fur. By wearing a Tanuki, Mario is sending the message that it is okay to wear fur. The statement is accompanied by a sinister-looking Mario in a fursuit dripping with blood, holding the head of a dead raccoon dog. So that's what I showed you earlier. This is the picture that goes along with the article. Talk about using any means necessary to defeat an enemy. PETA's website also features a deeply disturbing video of actual Tanuki, an animal native to Japan that looks like a raccoon but is in fact more closely related to a dog, being killed to death and skinned by people who work in the fur industry. The video is very upsetting, but whether that has anything to do with Super Mario 3D Land is up for debate. While it is true that at points in the game Mario does don a raccoonish-looking Tanuki suit that enables him to float in the air and swat bad guys with his tail, he never actually slaughters the animal to get this fur. Instead, as MSNBC's in-game blog points out, the magical Tanuki suit that Mario wears in the game typically spring from magical squares that magically hover in the air. These squares magically give up the suit, which at first looks like magical leaves, and then whenever Mario bumps his head into them, that's when he gets the suit. Still, PETA has created its own game called Super Tanuki Skin 2D, in which a skinless Tanuki is chasing a flying Mario trying to get his skin back. Okay, so when I first looked at this article, I kind of thought, okay, this picture is very graphic. I've myself not played the game. However, I did go on PETA's website and look at this Super Tanuki skin 2D, and it's very graphic. And so that's one thing that I think they're trying to portray, is that the video game is sending a bad message to players of the game. One question I do have is Mario really saying that it's okay to wear fur? I mean, who's to say that this isn't a fake fursuit? It does say that it is magical. It magically gets the wand and magically puts it on. Since it doesn't actually show him slaughtering the Tanuki, maybe it's fake fur. We buy fake fur in the store. I know a lot of celebrities who are members of PETA, they do wear the fake fur. And so I'm just thinking that maybe they didn't really infer and try to portray this violent fur-wearing, slaughtering Mario. And so in the video, it does say that there's no violence, there's no chopping off the head or anything like that. It just magically appears. And so it just kind of makes me think of that they're attacking this game. It also makes me think of Grand Theft Auto, those video games. I know the Grand Theft Autos were one of the more violent video games ever made, or not necessarily violent, but I mean, they have prostitutes and hookers in there, and they're violent, they're shooting people, robbing and stuff. And so as a parent, I would think that I would more so not want my child to play these realistic, violent games than a cartoon game where Mario's wearing some fur. This kind of makes me think that PETA is trying to fight fire with fire. We've heard that phrase before. Basically, instead of trying to do something about it, they're basically making their own video game where they attack Mario, and so that's showing human violence. So what's the point of their video? In my opinion, it's not really doing anything to fix the problem. An opposite perspective, I mean, I've given my opinion. I can understand that learning that these Tanuki are from Japan and these video games are manufactured in Asia, that the Tanukis are prevalent there, it could definitely have a different meaning. Maybe they were trying to portray the usage of fur. However, if somebody wants to buy the game and play the game, that's their decision, their choice in doing so, and they're the ones paying the money. And so, relating this text to another text I had read, I remember that reading that the Supreme Court, there was a video game that had promoted animal violence, a couple of animal violence games. And so there's actually a Supreme Court ruling 2 years ago, April 2010, that a couple of animal rights groups tried to pass a law saying that animal cruelty was not allowed in any video games at all anymore. And it was actually turned down. The Supreme Court overruled it. They said no, it's the First Amendment right, that if somebody wants to play these games or someone wants to make these games, that's their right to do so. And so it was actually shot down. This isn't the first time that it's actually happened, and that was in the Washington Post, April 2010. To relate this text to myself, it kind of reminds me, with it being all front page news and everything, it kind of basically reminds me of when you're walking through the mall or walking on campus, and there's those people that are passing out the pamphlets of pictures of abused animals, saying, you know, you should be a vegan, support these animal rights, do this, do that, look at how all livestock are treated. And that just kind of upsets me, because someone from the general public will take that pamphlet and be, you know, they say, oh my goodness, wow, farmers are horrible, they abuse their animals, look at all of this stuff. When in reality, yes, that does happen, and I'm definitely against abusing animals, not feeding them, hurting them, you know, in means that aren't necessary. However, the majority of operations are not like that, but to the general public, they don't necessarily know the difference. And so kind of the same thing with this text, relating it to that. You know, if I'm just somebody that is kind of on the fence as far as animal rights, I might get upset about this, and so it just reminded me of my personal experiences when they are trying to force that. And I've actually talked to them about that before. When they hand me that, I actually will open it up and explain to them why I do not care to donate to their fund or partake in their passing the word along about animal cruelty and everything. Just because when it gets in the hands of the wrong person, a lot of bad things could happen. And so, as far as globally goes, I actually wasn't sure what a tanuki was until reading this text. I hadn't even heard of one before. I wasn't aware that they are native to Japan. And so I kind of, I did definitely learn about that, learn about a new animal. Even in all my years being an animal science major, I had never learned that there was this raccoon dog that was out there that people did slaughter for their fur. And so it's very interesting when you read articles like this and you kind of pull them apart. You can definitely see different aspects as far as relating it to yourself, relating it to other texts, and relating it globally. And so right now I just want you to think about PETA, and I'd like you to answer if they are an animal rights group or an animal welfare group. And once again, going back to the meeting, animal rights groups are against the exploitation of animals, raising livestock for slaughter, using animals in circuses, zoos, anything like that. They are totally against it, even against holding a lot of animals as pets. And animal welfare groups are basically against the cruelty of animals. So if you feed your animal, take care of it, give it a nice lifestyle, they are not necessarily against you having those animals as a pet. And so is PETA animal rights or animal welfare? And then I'd also like you to think about this animal cruelty or animal violence, wearing a fur in a video game. Should an animal rights group or animal welfare group spend a lot of time and energy arguing that that's not okay? Or should they maybe focus on real-life instances, animals that really are being abused or animals that really are being slaughtered for use? I want you to think about that and just kind of form your own opinion about that. There's no right or wrong answer. Just think about it. I have my own opinions with it, and I'd just like you to ponder it, and we'll be talking and moving on with a couple more instances with the animal welfare and animal rights, and I would like you to please scroll down and look at the vocabulary to go along with this as well. Thank you.